It was a warm summer evening in Florence, Italy. The golden light of the setting sun spilled over cobblestone streets and painted the old walls of the city in shades of amber. Isabella, a 24-year-old art student from Spain, was sitting on the steps of the Piazza della Signoria, sketching the statue of Perseus in her notebook. She was so absorbed in her lines and shading that she hardly noticed the bustle of tourists passing by. But someone noticed her. Lorenzo, a 27-year-old Italian businessman, had just ended a long meeting and was heading home. He wasn't the type to stop for anything. His life was scheduled down to the last minute. Yet when he saw her, bent over her sketchbook with strands of dark hair falling across her face, he slowed. There was something magnetic about her presence, like she belonged to a different world entirely. He hesitated, then approached. "Mi scusi, are you drawing that?" he asked in lightly accented English, pointing at her sketch. Startled, Isabella looked up, meeting his hazel eyes. Something flickered between them. She smiled shyly. "Yes. I love capturing moments like this." Lorenzo sat down beside her, despite never doing such spontaneous things. "It's beautiful," he said softly, "not just the sketch but the way she looked at the world." That evening stretched into hours of talking. They wandered Florence's streets, sharing gelato and laughter. Before parting, Lorenzo asked if he could see her again. Isabella hesitated. She was only in Florence for a short time. But something in his sincerity made her nod. Over the weeks, their paths intertwined like vines on an old wall. Lorenzo showed Isabella hidden corners of Florence tourists never saw. A rooftop with a view of the Arno at sunset, a family-run café tucked in a quiet alley, a secret rose garden on a hill. Isabella shared with him her sketches, her dreams of one day opening a small art gallery in Barcelona. Lorenzo, in turn, confessed his struggles. The pressure of running his father's company, the loneliness of success, the fear that people only saw him for his wealth. With her, he felt free. With him, she felt cherished. One evening, as they stood on the Ponte Vecchio, the city lights reflecting in the river, Isabella whispered, "I think I could stay in this moment forever." Lorenzo turned to her, his hand brushing hers. "Then stay with me," he said. Her heart skipped, but fear lingered. Her studies were calling her back to Spain soon. Could love survive distance? When Isabella returned to Spain, their hearts ached. At first, they spoke every day, long video calls late into the night, handwritten letters that smelled faintly of ink and lavender. But distance is heavy. Lorenzo's business consumed him, and Isabella's final year at the academy grew demanding. Weeks slipped by without calls, then months. Doubts crept in. Was it love, or just a fleeting summer dream? Yet neither could truly let go. One letter from Isabella read, "Even when I try to focus on my art, my mind drifts back to you. Every brushstroke reminds me of your voice, your smile, your warmth. Tell me, Lorenzo, are we strong enough to fight for this?" Lorenzo, exhausted after a day of endless meetings, read her words and whispered to himself, "I will fight. Always." Nearly a year later, Isabella's art exhibition opened in Barcelona. She didn't expect him to come. It was too far, and his life was too busy. But as she stood in the gallery, surrounded by her sketches of Florence, she felt a presence behind her. She turned. Lorenzo stood there in a black suit, holding a single white rose. His hazel eyes glistened. "I couldn't miss the moment you make the world see what I've always seen in you," he said. Tears welled in Isabella's eyes as she rushed into his arms. The distance, the months of silence, melted away in that embrace. Their reunion was passionate, but real life brought new challenges. Lorenzo wanted Isabella to move to Florence. Isabella wanted to stay in Barcelona, where her career was beginning. Both feared losing themselves in compromise. Arguments flared, nights ended in tears. And yet, no matter how hard the storm raged, they always found their way back to each other. One night, after a fierce argument, Isabella found Lorenzo sitting on the balcony, staring at the stars. Quietly, she sat beside him. Do you ever wonder, she whispered, why love is so difficult? Lorenzo took her hand. Because the most beautiful things are worth fighting for. Months later, on a cool autumn night, Lorenzo took Isabella to the Tuscan countryside. Under a sky filled with countless stars, he knelt before her, holding a small velvet box. Isabella, he said, voice trembling, I don't know what the future holds. I don't know where life will take us, Barcelona, Florence, or beyond. But I do know one thing. Wherever you are, that's where my home is. Will you marry me? Tears spilled down her cheeks as she whispered, yes. 1,000 times yes. The following day, Isabella told herself she wouldn't see him again. She had promised her best friend, Lucia, that she wouldn't get distracted while studying abroad. But as fate would have it, Florence was not such a large city, and when she walked into a small family-owned café near the Piazza Santo Spirito, there he was. Lorenzo was seated at the corner table, his suit jacket off, sleeves rolled up, sipping a tiny espresso. His hazel eyes lit up when he saw her. You again, Isabella teased, trying to sound casual though her heart betrayed her. He smiled, a smile that felt both confident and unexpectedly gentle. Maybe Florence wants us to keep meeting. She sat across from him, pretending she had no choice. Or maybe you're following me? Guilty, he said without hesitation, leaning forward. But only because I can't stop thinking about the girl sketching in the square yesterday. Her cheeks flushed. She tried to hide it by picking up the menu, though she already knew what she wanted, her favorite cappuccino. You're very forward, aren't you? Only when it matters, Lorenzo replied smoothly. That afternoon turned into hours of laughter. They discovered shared loves, art, music, wandering through old streets without maps. Lorenzo showed her the quiet cloisters of San Lorenzo, where sunlight spilled in golden beams across the stone floor. Isabella sketched while he watched, fascinated by the concentration on her face. As the weeks passed, their meetings became deliberate. He would bring her fresh flowers wrapped in newspaper. She would draw little caricatures of him in her sketchbook, exaggerating his serious businessman look until he laughed so hard his stomach hurt. One evening, after they dined at a trattoria where the owners knew Lorenzo by name, they strolled along the Arno River. The night was calm, the city glowing. Isabella stopped in the middle of the bridge, staring at the reflection of lights rippling on the water. Back home, I thought Florence would just be a chapter in my studies, she said softly. But now, it feels like the city itself is trying to teach me something more. Lorenzo stepped closer. And what is it teaching you? She turned, meeting his gaze. That sometimes life surprises you. Silence lingered, heavy but tender. Lorenzo raised his hand slowly, as if giving her time to pull away, and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Her breath caught. Then, as the bells of Santa Croce began to toll in the distance, he kissed her. It was soft, hesitant at first, then deepened as though the city itself had conspired to pull them together. The world seemed to fall away, the tourists, the noise, the worries of tomorrow. There was only Isabella, Lorenzo, and the river beneath them, carrying their secret into eternity. When they finally pulled apart, Isabella whispered with a trembling smile, I told myself I wouldn't fall for anyone here. Lorenzo brushed his thumb against her cheek. Then break that promise. Just this once. Years later, their story was told through Isabella's paintings and Lorenzo's journals. They had built a life that was not always perfect, but deeply, fiercely, wonderfully theirs. And whenever people asked how they managed to hold on through distance, doubt, and struggle, Isabella would smile and answer, because one summer evening in Florence the stars aligned, and I never stopped believing in them. A sweeping romantic tale of love, distance, longing, and destiny. Love is not only found in perfect moments, but in the choice to hold on through storms, distance, and doubt. True love does not demand that one person abandon their dreams. It teaches two souls to grow together, to sacrifice without losing themselves, and to find strength in vulnerability. When the stars align, love is not just destiny. It is the courage to fight for what feels impossible, and the faith to believe that hearts meant for each other will always find their way back.